Joe Lombardi is officially fired as the Chargers offense coordinator, and I really couldn't be any happier. And I feel terrible saying that, and honestly, we should all kind of feel bad because someone just lost their job, and someone's family and all that stuff depends on it, but man, Joe Lombardi was just holding back this Chargers offense and Justin Herbert by so much that to finally see him out and to see that Brandon Staley and this team was willing to make that adjustment, makes me believe in this team a little bit more. So yesterday I kind of made a video on, is it time for the Chargers to clean house on all their coaches? Now, I did mention that Joe Lombardi had to be out, and I think Brandon Staley should stay. And that's kind of what seems like to happen. I'm so happy Joe Lombardi is out. Also, Shane Day, who was the quarterback coach for the Chargers, was also fired. Not going to talk too much on that. I don't know enough about, quarterback coach, how much he made a difference. I mean, obviously he was a part of helping Justin Herbert go along, but I feel like when you fire your offense coordinator, you're likely going to fire your QB coach along the way because you want to get a completely new group of guys surrounding a young, great quarterback in Justin Herbert. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Joe Lombardi getting fired and potential replacements for Joe Lombardi. So if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. But let's not waste any more of your time. Let's get right into this. Oh man, it feels so good to see Joe Lombardi as no longer a part of the Chargers. It feels great. And yes, I feel bad in saying that, but at the same time, this team had so much going for it and likely could have had a lot more still going for it if not for Joe Lombardi. If the Chargers would have fired Joe Lombardi in early on, even in the bye week 10, 11, imagine what the Chargers would be doing right now. I mean, I don't think they lose that game on Saturday. On Saturday if it isn't for the fact that Joe Lombardi and this offense just were drained in that second half. And if Joe Lombardi could have got one singular touchdown, that game's a win. There's no question that's about that. Joe Lombardi, for a good portion here and definitely in that game in the playoffs, was gifted points, and that's why he was able to put up those 30 points in the game. I mean, 5 turnovers, you're gonna get points off that, and you have Justin Herbert. He's gonna be able to find and give you a way to get points. 2 times the Chargers got the ball in the red zone or right next to the red zone. I mean, that's a guaranteed 14 points pretty much, which you take 14 off of your 30 right there, you only really did enough work to get 16, and another time you had 3 points that was from being on the other side of the field already from a turnover. So really, you only got 2 touchdowns worth of points by yourself that weren't gifted to you in that playoff game. So Joe Lombardi definitely held this team back a lot. Quick stats on Joe Lombardi in this offense this past year. I did cover this in yesterday's video, but why not cover it again? The Chargers were the 13th ranked scoring offense, 8th in total yards, but a lot of it came through the passing game with 3rd in passing yards, 12th in passing touchdowns, and they were the 30th in rushing touchdowns. Now I think that's, Justin Herbert's going to get you a great game going, and I do definitely think they're going to lean into Justin Herbert with their decision at at offense coordinator. Definitely get them a guy that's going to develop Justin Herbert, but I also think they're going to, if it's close. And even if a guy's a little bit better for Justin Herbert in the passing game, they might be willing to lean into a guy that is more well-rounded, not too far off of this other option, but more well-rounded to get this run game going. I mean, Austin Eckler had an incredible year, 915 rushing yards, really, really good year. But the fact that you were 30th in rushing yards was definitely a huge factor through this team not reaching its full potential, and also in the loss in the Chargers game. The Chargers ran the ball 7 times, I think, in the second half. If you're able to lean on that run game a little bit more, you're going to be able to chew the clock, and you're not going to give the Jaguars the opportunity late in the game to get that field goal and give them less total opportunities to score touchdowns. So hopefully whomever they bring in can also help fix this run game because it has been horrible as a whole. Although Austin Eckler has been your shining star, as a whole, this run game has not been good. 30th ranked rushing yards, 15th in rushing touchdowns, so that was pretty decent. 17th in red zone touchdowns, and a lot of those came late in the year just by hammering the ball to Austin Eckler and him finding a way to get into the end zone. And 17th in sacks allowed, which, I don't know how much is on the offense coordinator, but that's still something to look at. So, yeah, Joe really ruined this offense, and yeah, I mean, it sucks for him, but it's great for us and us Chargers fans. So let's quickly kind of talk about some potential offensive coordinators to fill this empty spot now. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about, potential fills for the quarterback head coach spot because I don't really know enough about it. I don't know how you go about hiring. Do you hire somebody that has experience already, but would you rather hire somebody that you know, or how does that work? So I'm not going to talk about the quarterback coach. Hopefully they do a good job because that is really, really important. But I'm going to talk about your OC right here. Now, my first option here, and this is the one that I brought up personally in the video yesterday, and one of my better options, I've looked into a little bit more. There are 3 other options I really like, so 4 total. But firstly, Frank Reich. Now, or Reich, depending on how you say it. I say Frank Reich. He was just fired by the Colts when he was the head coach this past year, and Jeff Saturday ended up taking his position. But he did show a pretty good ability to kind of get an offense rolling, even though the Colts weren't great and they had inconsistent quarterback play. I don't know how long Frank Reich was there as the head coach, but you had Philip Rivers, who took this team to the playoffs and was still like a top 10 quarterback, I believe. Maybe not top 10. He was definitely top half, though. And then you have Carson Wentz, who was dealing with injuries, and it's a 50-50 ball at all times. It's either going to intercept it or touchdown. There seems like no middle ground. And then lastly, you bring in a whole cluster of Matt Ryan in there, and then who came in after him? You Nick Foles in there, and they also had a young guy. I don't remember his name. So there's a lot of mess going on in the QB room, which definitely limited Frank and his ability to show how good his offense is. But he was the offense coordinator for this Eagles team when they went and won the Super Bowl back in what year did they win? 2013? No, that seems wrong. Whenever the Eagles won the Super Bowl, he was the offense coordinator. Sorry for not knowing the exact year. So he's shown a great ability to get an offense rolling. And even, when you don't have a great quarterback, because, the Eagles kind of really didn't. And even after Carson Wentz got injured, they definitely didn't. He also was a part of the Chargers coaching staff at one point, being the offensive coordinator for the Chargers in 2014 and 2015. I think he was also the quarterback coach in 2013 for the Chargers. So he already has experience with this organization. That could be good and bad. And, it could really go both ways there. Experience with the team, it failed once, so that could be enough to push you away, but that also means that you kind of know how the franchise works, and you've shown an ability to go win the big game with the Eagles. And, the only gripe here, the only bad thing here with Frank Reich is I think he will likely be pushing to get a head coach gig rather than fall back into the offense coordinator. I'm not sure how it will work, who will be willing to hire him. He did just have an interview with the Panthers, but, potentially he gets hired as a head coach, but he will take a job somewhere, whether that's offense coordinator or head coach. I think he'd be a very decent to good level offense coordinator for this Chargers team. Now the next option here doesn't have a whole bunch of things to label and give you expectations for, but it's going to be Mike LaFleur. Yes, the younger brother of Matt LaFleur, who is currently the head coach of the Packers and has seen a lot of success. So if you've already seen success from one, it's coaching, so it's a little bit different, but, you see Joey Bosa do good, and then Nick Bosa does good. You see J.J. Watt do good, then T.J. Watt does good, and then Derek Watt makes it into the NFL. It seems like family ties kind of play into each other where whatever the one does, the other one's going to be close behind in level of play. So potentially Mike LaFleur could be at that same level as Matt LaFleur and could be a huge boost because, the Packers have done a pretty good job. Maybe not so much this past year, but with their offense. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, you had Aaron Jones, and a lot of guys. You didn't have a ton of high level talent other than Adams in the wide receiver and stuff, and they still found a way to make it work. So hopefully Mike could be similar to his brother if he were to be hired as his offense coordinator. And he was just working as the Jets offense coordinator. The Jets started really, really good, and they kind of fell off there, but I think the quarterback play was a huge factor in why they fell off, and that's not going to be an issue for the Chargers. The Jets also had a pretty solid run game and went through a decent amount of running backs. You had Breece Hall was in there. You also had James Robinson they traded for. I think they also had Zonovan Knight. So he brings an ability to know how top-level running backs works. You bring that to Austin Eckler, that works. And the biggest issue with the offense coordinator spot for the Jets was their quarterback. You won't have that worry here. He could be a good option. He also coached under Kyle Shanahan for a couple years with the Falcons as well as the 49ers. So Mike LaFleur could be an option. Maybe not the best option, but the Chargers consistently go with people that don't have a ton of experience but have high upside. This kind of falls into that category. Now, the next person here is going to be a guy that, once again, similar to Frank Reich, kind of fell down a peg and maybe falls into the Chargers range, but that's going to be Cliff Kingsbury. Now, he does claim that he's going to step away from coaching for a while, but maybe if the Chargers are willing to talk to him a little bit and wait a month or two here, maybe Cliff Kingsbury is willing to come back as an OC and be a Chargers OC. And I think he's also vying for the Rams spot because I believe him and that coaching staff are kind of close. But he could potentially be a good option if he does come back to coaching. He was just relieved as a head coach for the Cardinals after a really rough year there. But he showed that he's willing to take risks, player-wise and plays-wise. He's also shown that he can, coach a top-level offense. I'm not worrying about what he's done as the rest of his head coaching career, but as an offense, he did a good job showing his ability. Now, this past year, not so much, but I think Kyler Murray being in and out of, injuries and all that stuff is kind of a big factor in that. But he kind of showed a good ability. He's willing to go deep with like Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins has seen a lot of that, but he's also willing to move the ball around a lot. James Conner, you also have Zach Ertz. A lot of ability to get everyone involved. And I think that's something really good, especially with a Chargers team that has so many weapons. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer, Gerald Everett, Donald Parham potentially comes back. Jalen Guyton potentially comes back. And if you end up, if you end up drafting somebody, that also could be another option. So he's willing to move the ball around. And, he kind of showed he can bring guys up as well. He worked with, of course, Kyler Murray, who was kind of in the MVP conversation last year. And, maybe he can raise Herbert a little bit more. That would be nice to see. He's definitely kind of maintained James Conner, who seemingly was going downhill, but now he remains at, a higher potential here, getting around 700 to 800 yards on the ground per year. We also saw him kind of reinvigorate Zach Ertz's career. Zach Ertz was kind of on the decline with the Eagles, and, his first year or two, full year with the Eagles, Cliff Kingsbury was able to take Zach Ertz and double what his last full year with the Eagles was. So he's shown that he can take a tight end and kind of pick them up. Likely you could see him do something like that with some other options here. And he did lead a top 10 offense, actually the 8th ranked offense for the Cardinals in 2021. So he does have experience of showing that he can coach a high-level offense. Now the last guy kind of here is going to be Brian Johnson. Now there's not a whole lot going for him, but he's the current quarterback coach for the Eagles, which is definitely a very, very good sign. He helped Jalen Hurts reach his MVP candidacy right now. Now I don't think he's gonna win it, but he's number 2 or 3 at least. So he helped be a part of that, raised him. He was a part of the 3rd ranked offense in the entire league. He was a part of, statistically in the regular season, the best team in the entire league. And he also has some OC experience with both Houston and Utah in college. So his experience, he's coached high-level quarterbacks. Hopefully he could raise the ceiling of Herbert as well. And he's worked through an Eagles offense under Eagles coaches and stuff that really have got things going. We've seen the Eagles have a top 5 running back who no one expected. Honestly, is still surprising. You saw them with some great wide receivers who really got it going for them, and A.J. Brown and a lot of other things were working for this team. They've brought together a really good offensive line, which the Chargers are on the brink of. Maybe he can bring some of the things that he learned over to the Chargers. But that is my last personal option. Now, there are some other options. Feel free to leave those in the comments. I'd love to learn some more. But those are my 4 in no particular order. Now, if I were to put them in a particular order, I honestly don't think I could, because they all have upside. They all have downside as well. Frank Reich, I think, will likely not be here because I think he's going to take a head coach gig. Cliff Kingsbury is questionable because of the fact that we don't know if he's even going to be willing to coach this year and how long it would take for him to decide he is, and if the Chargers are willing to wait that long. And then you have Mike LaFleur, who a lot of your upside and potential you're basing off of his brother, but does show other upside. And then Brian Johnson actually brings a lot, I think, to the table in potential and what he's already learned with, the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, a really good offense, third-ranked offense. I think he brings a lot. But it's time to celebrate, Chargers fans. Joe Lombardi's out. We're looking at a bright future now. Hopefully they can surround Justin Herbert with the right coaches as well as the right pieces. And I think bringing in a guy for the offense coordinator that's willing to take risks and maybe willing to talk in the ear of Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco to get guys for this offense that this team needs. It seemed like Joe Lombardi and Brandon Staley weren't willing, as well as Tom Telesco, weren't willing to take a risk last year to get you a wide receiver that you needed. Maybe you bring an offense coordinator that's willing to whisper in the ear of the person drafting and get a speed wide receiver for Herbert or get the right pieces around him. That's really what I'm hoping for, but I'm so happy Joe Lombardi's gone. I don't have a whole lot to say about Shane Day. I think he did have to go along with him, but man, Joe Lombardi being out was the thing I was begging for all year, and it finally happened. I'm so happy. But what do you guys think? Who do you want to be the next offense coordinator, as well as who could potentially be the quarterback coach? I don't know a whole lot about that, so I'd love to learn from you guys. Who you want as OC? Are there any options on my list you want, or is there someone completely different? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And, as always, I hope it taught something today. Hope it made you smile. Hope it made you laugh. Something really important to me. Affects my day in a great way, because every single day can be a great day if we all just put in the effort. And, as always, you guys all be safe out there.